Welcome to episode 49 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. Here we are in week 3000 of the pandemic, or at least it seems that way. There still is no plan in place to deal with this predictable disaster, which makes it hard to remain optimistic. But this is where we are. We must deal with life as it is, while trying to make it better. Part of what is going on now is that the curtain is being drawn back and we are able to see the illusions that we have chosen to embrace laid before us. Interesting thing about the word illusion. Illusion is defined as a concept or image created by the imagination, having no objective reality. The other words that have this same definition, the synonyms, are delusion, hallucination, and mirage. But doesn't most of life fit into that category? Isn't much of what we imagine just what we objectively know or believe at that moment? And who gets to define the limitations of reality? The eyes and brain we bring to situations are different as we grow and know more. That's just how the process of growth works. So what is obviously true and real at one point can be something else entirely further down the road. My youngest child would always respond to the offer of a new food as though I was trying to poison him. When I first offered him a piece of fudge, he looked at it in disgust. He must have thought it was mud, or worse, because he turned up his nose and was having no part of it. I convinced him to take a tiny bite, and his world was transformed. His imagination had conjured up an idea of what that brown stuff must taste like, lacking the objective reality of the splendors of chocolate and sugar and cream. We are deciding and redeciding what objective reality is day by day. We can only take in any given moment, what we are equipped to process. The rest is the great unknown that we must grow into. This is what keeps this school we are in so interesting. We are constantly growing into it, but never able to understand it all or experience it all. It contains all the lessons that anyone could ever need to learn, along with all the joy and magical moments that feed our souls and spark the desire for the next experience. Anyone who ever feels they are bored or that they know it all, are blind to everything out there that is to be experienced and learned. It takes more than one lifetime. As we venture through the grade levels of spiritual awareness, we are given different tools that are used to process the world around us. And with each progression, we see more of the picture, and we see it more vividly. Our awareness on every level is enhanced. With ever-growing clarity and illumination, we are able to expand our thoughts and imagination about what is and can be real. The rebirth is our chance to reimagine and realign our increased awareness with the world around us. It allows us to shed everything that no longer makes sense and everything that was rooted in ignorance and fear. We get to begin again. Our imaginations hold false limitations about what can be done and how we can live our lives. We tend to think that we must do what has always been done simply because we cannot picture another way. We tend to believe the illusion that the structures that are in place right now are required in some unquestionable way. But that isn't true. Of course, those who benefit from the structures, as they exist now, do everything they can to convince you that their scheme is necessary, and even that your life will suffer greatly if anything about the setup is changed. But some of these structures are rooted in low-level thinking, like law enforcement, which was originally designed to serve the function of being slave catchers. It was a scheme that kept slaves where they were enslaved and held the promise of keeping people of color away from white people. If you look at the way that ideology is still playing out in some places, you will see that it hasn't changed or evolved to match the more enlightened thinking of the collective culture. As you see the brave protesters continue to press forward with their message of Black Lives Matter, you see that they are doing the essential work of bringing that toxic thinking out into the light. In questioning the ideology, they are pulling law enforcement out in front of many phone cameras to show exactly what their mindsets are and the behaviors that are allowed and tolerated by those in charge. They are showing us who they are, and they are showing us the disease that infects the organizations that hire, train, and support them. These are organizations that we pay for to have them do this to our fellow citizens. Then we have the leader of this country who is displaying his propensity for authoritarianism by deploying gangs of secret police. We can't see their names, the agency they represent, the structure whose rules they are obligated to follow. Some of them are even in plain clothes, pulling people off the street and throwing them in unmarked rental cars. These are the actions that take place when you have authoritarian rule. He is showing us who he is. He is also showing us that he can assemble dark-hearted people to do his bidding. He is showing us who he is. The safety and superiority that we feel because we believe we live in a free and fair democracy is proving to be another illusion. Turns out we do not have checks and balances in place that will keep our democracy from falling when evil is in charge, and the others who are designated to keep it all in check are silenced by fear of retribution. We are having revealed to us the illusions of our shared history, which has been meticulously whitewashed for generations. We used this whitewashed history to prop some up as being more moral than they are, and held others back based on lies and institutional racism. So much hypocrisy is being illuminated. There are people serving lengthy prison sentences for selling marijuana, while shops that now legally sell weed are deemed essential during the pandemic. We have a segment of the population who believe that celebrities are sex trafficking and eating children, while that same segment is not bothered in the least by the very real children being taken from their parents and sexually abused at the border. It's like the truth is too hard to bear, while fantastical conspiracy theories bring some sort of weird comfort. All of our assumptions are being challenged. Some of the people we thought were good were not. Some of the people we thought were bad were not. We are experiencing the recalibration that the rebirth brings when we become more concerned with where people are on the spiritual awareness spectrum instead of how successful they are in earth matters. We are coming to terms with the fact that people start at a very low level of spiritual awareness and through choices and their consequences grow to higher levels, all while being part of the collective. Our individual experience is that we must deal with people from all the different grade levels in every aspect of our lives. Don't think that I'm a person who lives in some sort of fantasy land where you can just pretend that there aren't people among us who want to do us harm. That is not the case. This school will always contain those who are still inhabiting the lowest levels of spiritual awareness. Those at the low levels don't think twice about murdering, raping, pillaging. Those options are always on the table for them. The illusion is that we know who those people are based on their skin color or their economic status. The illusion is that only those with nothing to lose are willing to do harm. Some of those who sit in the highest places, in the nicest houses, are the lowest level people. They're just fine with doing massive harm to us all. This is evidenced by the fact that, as of today, there are over 5 million COVID-19 cases in the U.S., with over 156,000 dead. And they still can't be bothered to come up with a plan as to how this can be stopped. They can only complain about the fallout, like college football being canceled by some. They are furious about the effects and still disconnected from the cause. Allowing hundreds of thousands of people to die from a virus because you just don't want to deal with it, or worse yet, because you believe it is only affecting those who you see as inferior to you, is as evil as it gets. Knowing that millions who survive will be racked by continuing health problems and financial ruin is as evil as it gets. Another way that those in the highest places are showing us that they are at low levels of spiritual awareness is in amassing billions of dollars and social cachet for businesses that are built on the backs of those who are poorly paid and seen as disposable, while doing as little as possible to protect them. That is as evil as it gets. But we can't be undone by the enormity of the problem, because to think that we can't solve this is also an illusion. We are capable of greatness, and we are capable of caring for one another. We are capable of taking the worst of situations and turning them into the positive change that will benefit us all. The way that we express what we believe to be possible, what we believe to be our best imagining, is by voting for the person who best represents that vision. The way they express their imagining of what matters is where they distribute the money that they gather for those who have worked to make this society. It's wild to see that the monies that people have paid into our collective bank account in a time of crisis are being distributed to those who already have fortunes that were built on the backs of others. And those who actually need the money are being shamed for the need that was created by those who currently hold power and chose to mismanage this entire debacle. This is what happens when you believe the illusion that only white men have the answers and that people with large amounts of money know what will benefit us all. Turns out they don't. In the Rebirth Revolution, the pyramid of power is being inverted. Instead of the very small triangle at the top of the structure, the people who currently have all the money and the power, well, those people need to take a seat. The bottom, the widest part of the pyramid, made up by those who actually do the work, will see their position flipped to the top. There are many more people in that layer of the pyramid anyway. It only makes sense. The people who are currently at the top, the people with power, are only in that position because we, the larger part of the population, have granted them that power. Sometimes we do this by choice, other times by ignoring what they're up to. We are their checks and balances. We are the ones who need to keep the guardrails on. When we get too busy in our own lives to do that, this is what happens. As a part of the rebirth, we who have been powerless are beginning to see that we have earned much more than we have been afforded by those in power. As we band together, we collectively have much more power than the few who currently see it as their birthright. Those with power are thereby our choice. We can choose differently. The status that was once granted to those who graduated from certain schools has now been exposed to be misplaced. Turns out that was nothing more than a dumping ground for children of privilege and parental status. Good to know. Some had to work like crazy to be accepted, while others could coast on their parents' money and influence. Some who have basked in the glory of being protectors of society have revealed themselves to be deeply troubled people who cannot and should not have any power over others. We gave them that power, and unless we choose differently, they will continue to behave in ways that are even more problematic in the future. All of us, here specifically for the rebirth, are strong enough to face the real truths of how we got where we are now. We are strong enough to process all the hatred and cruelty and suppression. We are wise enough to know that the truth will, in fact, set us free. We are here to drag it all out into the light, shatter any illusions we had that held us back, and reconfigure the way that life works for everyone. That is exactly why we came here. Thanks for coming back for another edition of Rebirth Revolution. I appreciate your time and attention. Let us know if we can answer a question or address a concern. Email us at rebirthrev@gmail.com. Please pass along this podcast to everyone who you think may need it. They can get the podcast everywhere you get podcasts, on YouTube, or through services like Spotify, Pandora, and iHeartRadio. Thanks for your help. Until next week, ignore those who want to derail you with negativity. Question your illusions, be gentle with yourself and others, and wear your mask. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong, open, and most of all, stay safe. We need you in the revolution.